All right, we're live. So, how you doing?
Good.
2021. Happy New Year and all that good
Happy
stuff.
New Year to you.
It's been a
Doesn't
while
feel
since
much
we had.
different.
Pardon me?
The year doesn't feel any different.
Yeah. Well, uh, no. Uh, I just had a thought. I want to ask you this before we get into our mostly nonsensical content that we like to talk about, but yet interesting. Do you know? I don't know if I've had this conversation with you, but I've had it with a few people over the holidays. You know that time between Christmas and New Year's?
Yes.
It's like the Twilight Zone. You literally feel like you're in another dimension. Did you notice that? And I think most people do.
I feel like my days are all screwed up.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of like a day ahead. I'll give you an example. Christmas was on Friday, so next day, Boxing Day, Saturday, but it felt like a Sunday. And when it was Tuesday, I remember when it was Tuesday thinking it was Wednesday. And it just the whole vibe or feeling of the week, it was odd. It was off kilter.
Yeah. I think you're more normal than I am. I literally feel the same way. However, I will be off by like 5 days.
Oh, really?
4 days.
Okay. Oh, okay. So it was at least one day off. And today is Friday, but it feels like a Sunday.
Like a Friday for me will feel like a Wednesday. It's just so bizarre.
Right. Yeah.
And it's funny how you can feel a day of the week.
Everybody says each day has their own feeling. Like Friday, people are optimistic, they're feeling good, unless you're doing shift work. But Fridays and Sundays have a certain feel to them. Mondays have a feel, oh my God, go back to work type feeling.
Well, I think for different reasons we have different feelings. For me, Friday never felt that good, but Friday became for me movie night, and we either go out or we do family stuff. Okay. And I usually had to work Saturday because I was a wedding photographer or portrait photographer. Saturdays were usually quite crammed, but Sundays and Mondays became my favorite day, and that had a very distinct feeling.
Sure.
Especially
go ahead.
Especially Mondays, because I had Sunday off, and I just felt like, I felt refreshed, oddly enough. So it was kind of like reverse. I don't know.
Yeah. I remember most of my life, the jobs I've had have always been weird shifts. Like I've worked lots of weekends and holidays.
Right.
And especially I've worked in retail for several years, and I usually worked either every Saturday, every second Saturday. So Saturday kind of had a Friday feel because you know that the next day is off, unless of course you have to work Sunday, depending where you work. So it was slightly skewed, but I know what you mean. I remember when I was working at a call center, one of my shifts was I worked every day except Monday and Tuesday. So I had Monday and Tuesday off. So Sunday seemed like a Friday. It was just weird.
That would throw you off.
For some reason, I liked having Mondays and Tuesdays off. It seemed more relaxing. I wasn't compelled to do all this social stuff.
Right.
And I also one time worked at a TV station. We had rotating shifts. So either I had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, and then I worked 7 days. Then I'd have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off.
Right. That's weird.
Days. So when I had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off, it seemed more relaxing because...
Strange. I can see how it makes sense, though.
Yeah. Because Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I was compelled to go out and party or whatever.
Yeah.
People, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, everybody else is working. So I chilled out more.
You're out of the social loop.
Yes, definitely.
Doing your own thing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I tell you one thing, though, that feeling between Christmas, New Year's, I don't like that feeling. It drives me batty. Yeah, and I don't like it. I need structure.
Okay.
I've always needed, and in my early 20s, I started using a day timer. And it's very, very essential to me that I have structure. And people are surprised to hear that because I've got a large part of me that's very hippie-like, gypsy sort of like. From 1990, 91, for about 10 or 11 years, I did not use a watch.
Oh, really?
No, I have a watch now, but I didn't even use a watch. And, that was my early part of the time of my life. That was probably one of the best times in my life. You know, the pink cloud. You know, I sobered up and all that stuff, and I felt so good. I felt so alive, and I just said, screw it. I don't need to watch. I'm gonna go by the sun. I just felt so connected, and it was so weird. But I always needed a daytimer to structure my weeks and days, because and I think that the reason that that's for me is because I have the propensity to fall into chaos if I don't structure. I'm pretty sure there's an ADHD thing there or something that works against me. Did you just fart?
No, I changed positions and my computer moved a little bit. I don't know why I apologize, because I'm not harming anybody other than the aesthetic. Somebody may not like the aesthetics of the framing.
It's good. It's good, man. Good aesthetics. But the fact that you apologize immediately, you're guilty.
I'm Canadian. Yes.
You're guilty. You farted.
No, I didn't. I did not.
That's all good. Anyways.
Oh, speaking of sort of semi-related to farting, I have a great solution for COVID detection.
All right.
Okay, so they should have this. They should make this chemical or an injection where everybody gets injected, and if you do have COVID, anytime you exhale or fart, a green mist surrounds you. That way, even if you don't fart but you're breathing, you're going to be exhaling this green mist. Therefore, people will know you have COVID and they will stay away from you. It's sort of like the pool scenario where you be in the pool and the water turns purple or whatever color they have. So they should have kind of like some sort of detection injection thing where
that's a very practical solution, at least to determine whether or not you have it. And that way, if you know you have it, you could stay home until you don't have it. But you wouldn't want to be out and about, because there'd be a lot of like that whole ethical thing of, we're going to put you in this category and you're the one with the green mist.
Yeah, the green mist gulag, where they on the outskirts of town, where these special camps where people have COVID. And so let's say you're driving down the highway and in the horizon you see a great big green cloud. That's the gulag. That's the COVID gulag.
Stay away from there unless you want to catch COVID. So
yes. So you know that with COVID, if you shine an infrared light on a COVID germ, they look like 4-inch centipedes, and they make this little beep, 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 beep noise. I'm just kidding.
I believed you for a minute. That sounds like something from an alien movie or something.
Yes, yeah. COVID centipedes.
So let's talk about alien movie in a minute, but first let's talk about wordplay for a second. We talked about lurking and skulking a few days ago. We were having a conversation, and we thought the definitions were one thing, and then it turns out they're actually not. Lurking, you had thought was hiding in the shadows and moving, and skulking was you're sort of staying still in the shadows. And skulking or lurking sounds more nefarious.
Okay.
Right? That's sort of kind of what we were talking about. However, lurking, it means the opposite in many ways. Skulking means keep out of sight, typically with a sinister or cowardly motive.
Oh, okay.
And lurking means, you're just waiting, hidden in the waiting for an ambush. I don't know why this stuff is fascinating, but it's often something that we talk about in conversation. So we share these in these podcasts of ours and talk about interesting things.
I always thought skulking was like you're moving around while you're up to some nefarious purpose, and lurking is like you're in one spot, hiding for some nefarious purpose. But sort of like that, I guess.
Could be.
Also, like, what's the difference between immigrant and emigrant? Like,
Emigrant.
Emigrant, I think, is a person who's leaving the country.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Like if I'm emigrating from Canada, I'm leaving Canada.
Yeah.
But if I'm immigrating to Sweden, I'm going to Sweden.
Right.
So yeah, just threw that in there. So
you got a poster behind you.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
All right. So it's from the movie THX 1138. George Lucas, 1970, I believe. I think it's his first film. It's about a dystopian future where It's a horrible future where everybody looks like they're living in an enclosed compound, whether it's underground or not. And everybody's got their heads shaved. They all look the same. They're all wearing white. And they all are supposed to take mood-enhancing drugs to keep them sedated and to keep them docile and compliant.
Does that not sound a little bit like 1984? Isn't there a drug, Soma, in 1984?
Yes. I thought Soma was in Brave New World, but
Brave New World. I can't remember, but
sort of the same thing. But so Robert Duvall is in the movie, and he plays a guy who stops taking the drugs, and he starts to feel, and he starts questioning everything. And his job is he repairs robots, and all the cops are robots. You get these robot cops walking around enforcing things.
That's what's on your poster.
Yes, that's the robot cop. And it's all white and metallic. Everybody has a roommate. They live in a cubicle. And Robert Duvall has a female roommate, and she also has a shaved head. Everybody has shaved heads. But because he's stopped taking the drugs as well as her, they start having sex. And sex is illegal in the future.
Right.
So
no babies.
No. Well, they have babies, but it's got to be controlled. Like when the government decides okay, we're going to breed, you breed, but they probably do it artificially.
Right.
So what happens is they both get arrested for illegal sexual activity and drug evasion. So I'm thinking drug evasion? You charge with drug evasion because he's not taking his government-sanctioned meds.
Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. So I don't want to give away too much, but it's very well done movie. It's very terrifying.
Yeah.
And just shows what type of society we may be heading to. Like, for instance, how many people now are on SSRIs, which are antidepressant medications, and anti-anxiety medication? Anxiety, obviously, I think anxiety is probably a normal part of living. If you're in a difficult situation, of course you're going to feel anxiety. That's normal. Or you should feel anxiety, The only people who don't feel anxiety are psychopaths because their nervous systems are different. But so many people have anxiety disorders and other disorders. I'm not a doctor, obviously. I think sometimes people need to take that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky. I've never had a panic attack in my life. I've had anxiety. I've in my 20s especially, I've felt a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
But to me, that was my way of looking at the world, and it was situational. And I got my head on straight. I was more calm about things, and when I changed my attitude. But I think some people, like when they have panic attacks, it's almost like they feel they're going to die right then and there. That I think is not something you can talk yourself out of.
Yeah, I had panic attacks in my early 20s. It's funny. I was having a conversation last night, and it was pretty bad. I think panic attacks are way worse than anxiety.
Okay, yeah.
You feel like you're going to die. I felt like my heart was going to blow up.
Oh, okay.
It was awful. I hated it. And okay, let me say this in reference to the use of pharmaceuticals, which I agree. I think it's kind of crazy that pharmaceuticals are being used to the level that they are. It's almost like, okay, we have a challenge here. We have a struggle. The solution is medicate it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, well, maybe every time you have a problem, a difficulty, an adversity, panic attacks or anxieties or whatever, maybe that's a cue from the universe or from life itself saying, look, you got to push through this and you will be stronger for it if you push through it. That's sort of the thoughts that come into my brain. And there could be something to it. And, but we want the easy road. So I know when I was in my 1980, 81 was when I went through my panic attacks. And I did go see a psychiatrist and they offered me some drugs. I said, nah, that's okay. But nowadays, I think it would have been a different story. They would have he would have tried to talk me into it. And possibly, I don't know. They have the mandate, the protocol, which is to go down that road for whatever reason. Some might say it's a conspiracy. I don't think it's a conspiracy. For some reason, people just feel like that's the way to go. And that's become culturally, historically, and civilizationally the status. So if just to talk about THX for a minute and the use of whatever drug they were using, we'll call it their soma. Interesting. What was the purpose of it there? The purpose of it was to control people.
Yes.
So they're not using pharmaceuticals to control people now. They're using it as a, it's got a positive spin to it. We're helping people live better lives.
However, in the educational system, and I'm no expert, but a lot of young boys are being put on Ritalin.
Yeah.
And now ADHD, I've never had it. I don't think I've ever had it. Never heard of it until maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now almost like every second kid has ADHD. And I've heard people say that that it's a control measure to keep the boys in line, because boys are naturally rambunctious and energetic. And to me, it's like bring back dodge the ball. Recess. I don't know if they still have recess in schools. I hope they do.
I think so.
Run around and play and physical activity. And back to anxiety. I remember periods in my 20s when I was depressed and anxious, where I did a lot of running, long distance running, and that really helped. And you release natural endorphins in your body, and after a certain point, this what's called the runner's high.
Yeah,
you feel good. You do. You feel like you're part of everything. Yeah. And I guess bodybuilders or anybody who works out a lot probably has some sort of endorphin release, which is body's natural chemical to reduce pain or tolerate pain. So there's probably other ways. Now, I don't want to, if somebody's like severely anxious or whatever, go see a doctor or talk to somebody. But I'm going to be very judgmental, but let's say you're a 16-year-old and your girlfriend breaks up with you.
I know where you're going.
Go on antidepressants, unless you're suicidal. And, how often does that happen? Like,
this all ties together what you're saying, I believe.
Yeah.
And let's go back to when they started really medicating boys.
Yeah.
For the reasons that one of the, or several of the examples, dodgeball and recesses. Okay, this ties in with, why did they start participation trophies?
I don't know. It was they wanted to have people feel good about themselves, and obviously, if you lose, you're not going to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
So they want to make everybody happy. They don't want to have out. So they're cutting out on. I think the intentions behind it weren't bad. No. Like, it wasn't a sinister thing. Let's have participation trophies so that nobody's competitive. I think they came out with their motive was to make sure everybody feels good about themselves and nobody gets left out.
Yeah.
Which in a way is good. However, I mean, there's always going to be somebody better than you in something. And that's part of life.
Well, that's true. But the fact is that came about, and that's what I find fascinating. And it ties into participation trophies and medication and protecting people's feelings. They're trying to protect people's feelings.
Yes.
This is leading somewhere grander. We're opening up cans of worms here. So, so participation trophies and such, that whole idea behind protecting others really falls under the umbrella of inclusivity.
Yes.
And it becomes very pathological, in my opinion, just the way altruism can become pathological. It sort of diverts to a darker realm. And I think that's part of what's going on and what's wrong in society, because, you look at it and go, well, look how rough and tumble that boys are. They hurt one another, but that's the way boys are. I mean, we like to fight, we wrestle, and we see a tree, we climb the damn thing, even if we fall down and break an arm. It seems to be a part of our nature, and I think it ties into testosterone. And if you look back to millions of years of evolution, there's probably a biological link there. I have no doubt in my mind. And so we're like viewing these things as negative, and we want to protect everybody, and we want everything to be fair and inclusive. So let's lead this into where I'm going to open up a big old can of ugly worms, where people will start to hate me for it, but I'm going to bring it up anyways.
Bring it up. Bring it on.
we have, by the way, this conversation has just sort of evolved on its own, didn't it? That's not where we were wanting to go.
Agenda here, but
That's good. So my thing is that all came because it's largely from a gynocentric side of things. So meaning that it was largely when women became more empowered and in control of institutions and whatnot, probably more, if you can stereotypify and sort of create a meme, an avatar of such a woman who let's say she's a very smart, she has an education, probably a PhD, probably in sociology, or worse yet, gender studies or something like that, or grievance studies or victim studies or whatever. And she's like becoming more in charge and has more power, and somehow there's others more like her. So these are women, and they're trying to, they don't get married, it's career first, or maybe they're married but they never have kids. They don't really feel that sort of nurturing bond that a mother feels. So the system becomes her child.
Yeah, I can see that.
Is that kind of weird, or does that make at all sense?
I never thought of it that way, but yeah, the system is her child.
Yeah, to me, that is as clear as day. And I felt that way since decades ago. And I'm not saying it in a judgmental way, even though I'm convinced there's a certain segment of the population, anybody listening to this would absolutely hate me for saying that. How dare you say that? But I'm not saying it in a judgmental way, and I'm not saying it to blame. I'm only saying it to explain what I see and what I sort of am theorizing.
Wow, I never even thought of it that way.
Does it make sense to you at all?
No, it does. I never thought of it that way. The system is her child, or her purpose or child.
Okay, you're right. Let me put it to you this way. What is the highest order of things? For a man, for a woman, and all 68 other genders. What is the highest order of things?
Well, probably for a man, it's to take responsibility, build, accomplish, look after.
Yeah. So what's the highest order of things for a woman?
Motherhood.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the feminists won't, I mean, they're going to accuse you of being, what's that thing they're going to accuse you of being? A misogynist.
Misogynist, yeah. But
by the way, anybody calls me a misogynist, I know right away they're full of it, because it's like, oh, you're pulling the M word on me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not buying it. It sounds, I think a lot of people get all kind of like, oh, I'm a misogynist. I call bullshit on it, because they're just, it's an ad hominem. It's an empty ad hominem argument.
Like there's always an outlier. Like there are some women who definitely don't like children.
There's definitely that.
Or not necessarily they don't like children. They don't care. They don't want to have kids. And I respect that. Like, good thing that you know that now, instead of being an abusive mother. You know, some women like to work and accomplish, like a lot, like trying to think of examples of women who kind of went against the grain and marched to the beat of their own drum.
Well, there's very few.
Across the Atlantic and was lost. There's this female pilot.
Oh, the pilot. Yeah, that's.
I forget her name, but she.
Blanking out. How can I blank out? I know it. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, she was a pilot, and she was lost, and they made movies about her.
Yeah.
And
Amelia Earhart.
Yeah, Amelia Earhart. She seemed like a pretty interesting individual.
Yeah.
And there's some people that just. I don't know if Jane Goodall is married or was married, but
I don't know, but she's definitely in the same category.
Yeah, she spent her life looking after or studying chimps and that. So yeah, there's always an outlier where somebody will march to the beat of their drum and
let's highlight outlier, because that's far from the norm.
Like, okay, so what is the norm? Probably the majority of men want to be married and have children and be fathers, and probably the majority of women want to be mothers. And
at some level, that's true.
That's probably, I'd say, at least 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the population want that, and that's natural.
Yeah.
And then you might get I know a couple of guys, myself included, confirmed bachelors.
Mhm.
We are doing our own thing, and we are happy. We are not going to bow down, and just because society says you have to get married and have a house and
Yeah.
raise children, no, I don't want to do that.
No.
Same with women. I know some women who are they like their careers, which is fine. So
Yeah.
there's always an outlier. But how do we get onto? I'm thinking that maybe Rollo Tomasi talks about ego investment. How you have a belief system,
Right.
okay, and if your belief system is challenged or proven wrong, in some ways, the way I understand it, it shatters your ego because your ego is so tied up in what you're thinking is the right way.
And confirmation bias plays in that
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah. So I'm thinking maybe these ladies who are in charge of children and the educational system, they probably honestly think this is the way things should be done. They have a way of looking at things. This is how you should teach, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they have sinister overtones of
No.
trying to control boys and that. They just think, well, this is the most efficient and best way of doing things from a female perspective. Same with men. Men
Yeah.
probably have this is the way you do it. No other way of doing it. So they like, let's say a guy is having an issue with something, problem solving. Maybe it's a issue with the house or some sort of issue where maybe he has a certain way of thinking of this is the way it's got to be done and don't tell me different.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say his wife or girlfriend tells him, well, have you thought of this way? And she could be right.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, he doesn't want to accept that because he's got the ego, he's got the bias or the ego investment.
Yeah.
So I think people have this, myself included, well, my way is the best way. The way I think things should be, that's the way it should be. And if you challenge me on that, it pisses me off. But
you get defensive.
Yeah, but I'm at a point now in my life where I may not like suggestions, but I consider stuff. I do.
That's called wisdom.
Yeah, I do look at things. I
Maturity.
do look at points of view and consider them. And oh my God, once in a while I'm wrong. What is suggested is the proper thing to do, and so that's my spiel on that.
That's a good one. So I think you're absolutely right in the outliers, Amelia Earhart, and I'll put Maria Montessori in there, and there's a lot of very accomplished women who would fit in that category in whatever pursuits they went after, but they're definitely not the norm. And which leads back to the what I was talking about, the highest order, and make it a general statement. I mean, the highest order would be the creation of life, in my opinion. So it's been my observation anyways. That's I know of no greater experience than the experience of a mother and her child. The bond that my wife has with our daughter, I don't even come close to that. Not even close. There's a special bond. And I remember when I went to the hospital the morning, our daughter was born at 1 a.m. I went home for a few hours and came back the first thing in the morning, and my wife was holding her and she was crying and she was just in tears. She goes, oh my God, she's so precious. I mean, that moved her and rocked her world like none other. But my point is this, that's the highest order, put that in that category. So you have somebody who, in culturally speaking, in our society, we've changed the highest order to no, you get a career. That's the highest order, right? Which I don't necessarily think it's absolutely the smartest way to go. I mean, it's and a lot of victimology and butt hurtiness is being pushed, and men are being pushed aside, and part of this inclusivity movement, which has really gone down these weird roads, and I think we're just getting warmed up, by the way. But let me finish my point, then I just want to make the grand picture, and I'm going to give you an example of what I consider to be another avatar, which fits in with what you were talking about, the outlier. So I'm almost done. So you've got that highest order, which has been changed, okay, and it's not playing with dolls and having a family. It's you can do anything. you go get educated, you get a career. And a lot of women, that's been since the 70s, right? So a lot of women go to school and they get these education, and they get qualified to work in whatever field they're in, which is what we're talking about. And they make these decisions. And so they didn't get to pursue what I consider to be the highest order, which is having a family. So that becomes their family. And it's almost like okay, they got this energy, do this. Oh, we're still got the energies there. And that's a very maternal energy, but taken out on an institution. So I think one of the reasons why people don't, could be, I don't know. I can't describe an Amelia Earhart. I mean, who can explain that? I don't know. But you have, say, let me give you a sort of a darker version of that. This is going to sound mean, okay? Do you remember, like, you watch movies growing up, and if you had a scene where there was a social worker involved, do you remember?
Yeah.
It was always a woman, hair tied tight, and she was miserable. That was the archetype, the meme. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I saw them as being miserable, but
they were like just dour.
Oh, okay.
They were just, and you know, there was evil going on in the household. We're going to pull your family away. Even though there wasn't that. I mean, there's a lot of stories and movies where that is the situation. And you look at that and you look at somebody like that. I look at somebody who fits that sort of description. And I'm not saying that about all social workers, by the way. I know a lot of them. They're beautiful people. They're amazing. I really seem to connect with them for the most part. But I'm talking about the archetype, that sort of like avatar. And she, in that case, is probably damaged. She's been somewhere growing up in her childhood. She's probably had some very negative experiences, and that shaped that level of negativity. So, and there's different extremes here. What I'm talking about, you know, from the one end, you can have bad experiences that affect you and help sort of guide you and what you end up doing in life, versus just society and culture itself, which says, hey, girls, you can do anything, girl power. The future is female. You can do anything you want. And which I think is not necessarily the ultimate. So what were you going to say?
Gee, I forgot. No,
sorry.
I forgot.
I have no idea why we got on this topic.
I was thinking about the social worker archetype. I never really thought of her as being dour, maybe serious, but
serious.
Yeah.
Sort of pessimistic, negative.
Yeah.
I think there's a darkness to it. That's sort of what I recall. But she always had like a gray sort of skirt that went down below her knees, and the shoes and the briefcase.
We could use that as a porn theme. Get the repressed, dour social worker who lets loose in the evening. You know?
Yeah, and her wicked ways get revealed as soon as she gets in touch with her sexuality.
Speaking of that, just thought of that. Did you ever see a movie called Looking for Mr. Goodbar? Diane Keaton?
If I did see it, I don't remember it, but I know of it. Okay,
so she plays a teacher that teaches deaf children. And so she's got her deaf children. She's the archetype teacher. Well, I'm not to say archetype, but Miss So-and-so. She's a nice lady. And I remember growing up, most of my teachers in grade school were women, and you had a certain feeling towards them. They kind of had a very feminine energy, almost mother-like energy in some ways. And It was nice. It was a nice kind of, they're good. I had a couple of bad teachers too, but generally they were good. So I can't obviously I didn't know the ways of the world when I was a kid, but I wonder how many of these really nice feminine mother type teachers had really, really hot sex lives in the evening. I don't know why I thought of that, but I remember what I was going to say.
You think of the darndest things.
I know. The movie, when you're talking about social justice and equity and all that, I watched a movie last week called Mary, Queen of Scots.
Right.
It had Saoirse Ronan played Queen Mary, and Margot Robbie played Queen Elizabeth. So it's based on history, between Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth. They're cousins, and there's all sorts of plotting and a conflict between the Catholic and the Protestants, and lots of intrigue. And it was a good movie. However, and this really annoyed the hell out of me, they had all these minorities thrown in. Oh. I have no problem with minorities being in a movie, but this is like 16th century England.
They had an agenda.
I don't think they had black noblemen or people in power. Yeah. Maybe they had a few slaves. I don't know. But throughout the movie, there's all these different minorities sprinkled through. Yeah. And I watched an interview with a director about that. And she said, I wanted to make this an inclusive movie. And I'm thinking, well, it just didn't fit the history. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's like if I were to make a movie about Vikings, I wouldn't have all Asians play the Vikings. I wouldn't have all black people play Vikings. If I were to make a movie about some tribe in the Congo, I wouldn't have a bunch of Scotsmen playing them. It's like, what's wrong with this picture? You gotta be, that's where it's getting to the point where a little bit ridiculous, and it ruined the movie for me. The movie itself was, apart from the miscasting of characters, the movie itself was pretty good. I liked the intrigue and the dialogue.
You couldn't get beyond that, though.
No, it just ruined. It's like, what? It's like, back in the day when they had John Wayne, I don't know, I guess in the 50s or 60s, you had white people play Indians. Native. I mean, okay, what's wrong with this picture? Why don't you have natives play natives? Or like
Chief Dan Dorge.
Yeah, or one movie which was really good, but it goes down a couple of points. Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Right.
Great movie. However, Mickey Rooney's character plays this Japanese gentleman.
Oh, geez. I didn't know that.
Real stereotype. He's got buck teeth and he's got glasses, and he's sort of like he was put in there for comic relief because it's a pretty serious movie. And he plays this tenant of the building that the main character Holly Golightly lives. That's by Audrey Hepburn, and she's having all sorts of parties and stuff at her house, and he's always complaining.
Yeah. And
in some ways, I agreed with him. It's like, if I was living in an apartment, I wouldn't want to have people have loud parties all the time.
Yeah.
And he was like unfairly number one, the poor guy got every right to complain. And number two, they have him miscast as the angry Japanese guy. The angry Japanese guy played by a white guy. All right, what's wrong with this? That totally. I still love the movie. I give it like an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for that miscasting, even if they didn't have him, why couldn't they just have some weird guy or something complaining? But don't miscast. Don't have a Japanese guy being played by a white guy. And then when you do make them Japanese, every single caricature and stereotype they have it magnified. And so that knocked a few points off the movie, but it's still a pretty good movie.
You're talking about Tiffany's or the other one?
Breakfast and Tiffany's.
Yeah, but different times too. I mean, that's just the way the mindset was sort of at the time. It was kind of silly. We don't have to agree with it now, but back then it was like, we look at it and go, man, that was weird.
And didn't John Wayne play Genghis Khan, I think, or something?
I don't know.
Well, there was a white actor who played Genghis Khan in some movie in the 40s or 50s. And
it's almost,
On the other hand, actors are actors because they play somebody else.
Yeah.
So you could use that argument. Well,
yeah.
If he looked like he was Mongolian, I think Genghis Khan was Mongolian, or I don't know.
I believe he was. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a guy to make up to look like a Mongolian and it actually looks like a Mongolian, then that works. Same with you can use the argument, and this is a really lame argument. Planet of the Apes. Well, you have people playing the apes. Well, no, you're not going to get apes playing the apes. You can't train an ape to do dialogue and stuff, Yeah. So some movies are like they're following the formula of we have to have a message. We have to portray.
Well, that's the way Hollywood's going. I mean, if you follow any of that on YouTube channels like Nerdrotic, and there's a few other channels, I can't think, the Critical Drinker is a good channel, Scottish guy. I don't think he talks about this, but I'm pretty sure Nerdrotic does, about how inclusivity is. And then they think it's going to ruin it, probably for the same reason you felt that about Mary Queen of Scots. But here's my take on it. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
But if it's the agenda over the story,
Yeah.
I'm not watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's a little bit and the movie's really good, I'll sort of give them a pass. And I'll say, okay, it's a good story, in spite of the fact that they're pushing this stupid, lame-ass agenda on me. And I'm probably going to get accused of being a racist for saying that. But it's kind of silly, you know, because let art be pure and let art tell the story that it's trying to tell without this agenda. And I think it ties into the same thing we were talking about a minute ago with the participation trophies and why that became a thing. It's just now it's that sort of pushing your agenda into everything about society, because we can analyze it or try and figure out why that is the case. But there it is. So I don't like it, but hopefully it doesn't ruin movies. Maybe in time I can see this happening, independent movies, where we're just going to tell a damn good story.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. And those men and women will have an opportunity to create really good movies versus this agenda driven stuff.
Another thing I want to bring up is fat shaming, and not just fat shaming, but I think once in a while shaming somebody or shame is a good thing. Like, why does one feel shame? Usually because they do something that's shameful. Now,
usually,
yeah, obviously there's toxic shame where people get shamed for stuff they have no business being shamed. To me, it's a control device. You know, you shame somebody. Oh, you shouldn't be feeling this way. Blah blah blah. However, okay, just sake of argument, let's say a guy's married and every time he gets a babysitter, he has sex with the babysitter. Okay, he should feel shame for doing stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
Then you go to fat shaming. There's this fat positivity movement happening.
Right.
You go, girl. You're beautiful just the way you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody's, and I've been overweight my life, so I know what it's like to be fat. And so it's no fun when somebody makes fun of you. Like, obviously, you shouldn't go out and make fun of people that are fat. You don't know why they're fat. Being fat is not a good thing, bad for your health. But don't promote it. Don't say it's okay.
Yeah.
At least have some compassion. Like, if somebody's fat, okay, don't go poking them in the belly saying, and that's happened to me. Like, oh, you're putting on weight, eh? Poke, poke, poke. Like, no, are you serious? I never noticed, you know, like, you know, so the whole, the body positivity, I can kind of see the motives. They don't want people to feel badly about themselves, which
goes back to the same thing, participation trophies.
Yeah. But
they're trying to protect people.
Okay. For instance, if you get your entire body covered with tattoos and you have a tattoo of a spider on your forehead or something, and you go look for a job and nobody wants to hire you. No kidding.
No kidding.
No, like, really, it's sometimes I think shame is a good thing. It hopefully it motivates you to
I
do
agree.
better. Now, there is bad shame where, let's say, I've experienced this myself, where I played football one year in high school and we lost a game, and the coaches really laid into us after the game. They were like, oh my God,
brutal.
You think that we killed their pets or something, you know, like,
right.
Oh my God, and guys were hanging their heads. I think a few were crying that they did so badly. Come on. Like, that's, to me, is toxic shame.
Yeah.
Like, you're being told that's
bad leadership.
It is. And I remember 3 coaches on a tirade about, how badly we did and blah, blah, blah. And even though I never played in that game, I felt lots of shame. Oh, I'm responsible somehow for the losing. Is like, no,
Well, that's because you're a white.
Better. Like,
that's because you're a white male. You're automatically to blame. So.
Well, this was the '70s, so it didn't matter.
Well, still, I mean, retrospectively, it was still your fault.
Yeah. But so the whole shame movement, like, you should never feel shame. Like, okay, for instance, promiscuity. Like, I'm not a prude. I'm not saying you need to wait till you get married to have sex, but don't have a body count of 500 by the time you're 30. Like, that's not good for men or women. Doesn't matter. Like, if you're out there having sex with everybody and having a great old time, That's not going to go well, in my opinion. You know?
No, it's going to lead.
I'm not saying remain a virgin until you get married, but like I think sometimes promiscuity is needs to be shamed.
Well, it's like anything; it could be taken to extremes, and it could
Yes.
be sort of destructive in a sense.
Yeah.
But I always look at talking, and this is in reference to shame as well. I mean, I always look at if somebody's struggling with overeating or
Yes.
oversexing or whatever.
Yeah.
Could be anything. There's a lot of weird compulsions that we can get into as humans, and I mean, there's the common ones, but alcohol, drugs, yada yada yada, and at its very root, I believe, is a level of internal shame, and we have to deal with it on our own.
Yes.
And perhaps there's roadblocks being put up to that when you have the solution through our modern civilization. The solution is to medicate or to try and protect everybody from feeling shameful because of whatever situation they're in. Whereas the alternative would be, okay, deal with it. We'll support you, which leads to your coaches shaming you guys, which I think reflects bad on them.
Yeah.
And but somebody who is a leader in that kind of position out to know better. Technically, they out to know better and come into a situation like that and say, look, guys, we screwed up. Let's speak the truth of it. We screwed up, but we're going to do better next time.
I agree.
We're going to do better next time. I mean, that's hard for people to do. You have to be clear and not want to default to blame and or play victim.
Right.
So let's take it back around to THX 118
Oh, THX 1138. Okay. So George Lucas's first film.
Yeah. When did you watch it?
Several months ago, I watched American Graffiti.
Oh, I remember that movie.
Another George Lucas film.
Oh, I love that movie. We were 15 years old when that came out.
Okay,
We were
so
obsessed over that movie.
I noticed one of the license plates in the cars was THX 138.
No shit.
It wasn't 1138, but it was THX 138.
Unbelievable.
I don't know where that number came from, but he's used it more than once.
It's
or
funny.
a variation of it.
There's a term that when people do that in movies, what do you call those? There's a term.
Yeah, I don't know. I know, like Quentin Tarantino, he has this thing for feet.
He does.
So every movie, there's always a woman's foot or women's feet are being thrown in there. So everybody, I don't know if it's a trademark or something. It's always this little thing. It's like a signature.
Yeah.
You're watching a movie like, I'm just trying to think of any other actors who have the same type of signature, but or not same type, but have a signature where every movie has a certain thing thrown in.
Well, they do this. They do this all the time. They've always insert these references to other things that have another meaning.
Yes.
You have to know about it in order to catch it.
Okay, like in Quentin Tarantino. Okay, so the name Marvin and Scagnetti.
Yeah.
Okay, so Quentin Tarantino wrote the screenplay for Natural Born Killers.
Yes.
Either wrote it or co-wrote it. Okay. Now there's they talk about a cop who was killed, and his name was Marvin Nash.
Right.
All right. Reservoir Dogs. The cop that gets his ear cut off. His name is Marvin. Because Tim Roth's character asks him what his name is, and he says his name is Marvin. Okay. Pulp Fiction. The black kid who got his head blown off in the back of the car.
Yeah.
His name was Marvin. Okay.
He's got to think for that.
Okay.
Name.
Scagnetti. Natural Born Killers. Tom Sizemore's character plays a cop named Jack Scagnetti, who wrote a book about himself called Scagnetti on Scagnetti. And in Reservoir Dogs, Mr. Blonde's parole officer name was Seymour Scagnetti.
Nice.
Okay. So Mr. Blonde's real name is Vincent Vega. Vic Vega. Okay. They mentioned his real name, Vic Vega. And Pulp Fiction, John Travolta's character is Vince Vega. Then later on, I heard that they were cousins. So there's all these little links. Oh, Red Apple cigarettes.
Yeah.
Okay. Pulp Fiction. Bruce Willis buys a pack of red apples.
Uh-huh.
It's a made up cigarette brand. The last movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Uh-huh.
they do a commercial for Red Apple cigarette.
There's a term for that. I can't think of it
Yeah,
off the top
yeah.
of my head, but it's like you find these little things in the movie.
Yeah.
People talk about them often. These movie files,
Yeah,
cinephiles talk about them all the time. It'll come to me maybe by the next podcast we can do
sure.
some research on that.
Yeah, yeah.
But THX, you saw it, and you were a teenager, and it played on TV. You mentioned, and I believe I was watching it the same time. It was in the 70s, around 75 when it played on TV.
Yeah.
And I think I might have been in grade 11 or so. I think I was stoned. I came in late one night. I would do this. I had my growing up, everybody, mom, dad, 4 sisters, myself, and we had a basement just like Wayne's World. That was my basement. That was my life.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'd go in the basement. I'd be like kind of buzzed out, and I'd turn the TV on and see what was playing. And I remember one night watching that movie, and it blew me away. That movie is amazing. And I watched it again recently, and well, you and I plan on watching it again, and I think we could dedicate a whole podcast to that movie. So I think it's uncannily good. It's so good. It's amazing how George Lucas can make and create a story that is so powerful and resonates with people. When you talk about that movie, you talk about Star Wars, and you talk about what was the other one? You just mentioned it. American Graffiti.
Yes.
I mean, when American Graffiti came out, that movie just floored all of us. I
love that movie.
The whole thing was, how many times can you go see that movie? Because we get a few bucks together and we go see it again and again and again. But THX is an older movie. It came out, like you mentioned, in 70, 71. And I think it's so dystopian, and in many ways we might be heading that way.
I'm afraid we are, because there's a scene in the movie where they have these announcements playing throughout the whole movie. Like there's this central voice, and it's talking to the people, and consume, be productive. So there's a scene where Robert Duvall's character, it looks like a shopping mall. He goes in there and he buys this red, multicolored type of cube. Not a cube, but it's got several dimensions. It's a red plastic thing. And he buys it, and like, what does it do? I don't know. You play with it or whoever. And he buys it, and he takes it home. And then after spending just a minimal amount of time with it, he throws it in the garbage. So I'm thinking, that's kind of like a commentary on consumption culture, where you go out and buy something, and it's like, okay, I have to get the new iPhone 57 or whatever. You know? Really? Like I've got an Android. It's coming up on 5 years, and I don't want to get another phone.
Well, you're right, but what you're saying is that dopamine hit, that consumption, that driving force. It's kind of shallow, meaningless, and it just fills in and entertains us. In some ways, when you think about what is the new Soma, you could put that in that category, and things like Netflix. Anything to distract us from and I think we're really going in that direction, especially with the lockdown. Everybody's forced to stay at home, and I think the majority of the population feels that this is the right thing to do. They don't question it. Stay at home, but they don't realize what effect it's having on them. It's sad. There's no more freedom to, they're not really questioning, hey, maybe there's something better I could be doing. And maybe this is going to have a detrimental effect on my psyche. Just doing the same thing day after day after month after month after month, not seeing I was talking to people who haven't seen their family since 9 months now, because they're so afraid of catching it. And, kids and grandkids and in-laws and whatnot, they're just so afraid. They're really putting themselves. And I think that that's more common nowadays than ever. So this could be a stepping stone towards, to some degree or other, maybe not exactly like that movie, but that movie was amazing. We got to dig deep into it. I think it's such a good movie.
And there's a lot of surveillance in the movie where there's cameras everywhere and everybody is being tracked, and you got people in control rooms videotaping everything, and just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So when they talk about tracking apps on your phone for the virus, it's like, oh. And now there's commercials on, don't worry. And I've heard this, I was into Shoppers Drug Mart, and they have all these announcements, and the new tracking device, don't worry, it's not going to get your information or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right. Like, hopefully not, but I don't want to have access to, I don't want the government having access to everything that I do.
Well, if they have to tell you that, it probably means they're lying.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Or bullshitting at some degree.
And I just found out this morning, there's this guy on YouTube called Hex and Hammer 666.
Yeah.
A YouTube channel. And in Spain, they want to make a blacklist of people that don't take vaccines.
Oh, really? Like the green mist?
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you don't take a vaccine, you're put on a list. And that, like, okay, so you're on a list if you don't have vaccines. What like, you're not going to be, are you going to be a second-class citizen or something? Or
Oh, it's crazy.
Like, I'm all for the vaccine, but don't tell me I have to take it.
This is dark times, man. Dark times. And it's probably part of the Great Reset, to whether they're doing it consciously or just unconsciously. That's sort of the direction they're going into. We should talk about the Great Reset. And let's watch that movie.
Yeah.
Analyze it and draw parallels to what's going on today, and,
Sure.
and implicate the Great Reset. And, I follow a couple of forums on lockdown skeptics and the Great Reset. And people think, if you talk about it, some people think it's a conspiracy.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, it's not, because it's on the World Economic Forum's website, and Time Magazine dedicated, I believe, October 2019, the whole issue to the Great Reset. It's right there on the cover. Klaus Schwab. You ever seen a picture of Klaus Schwab's dressed up like he's in Star Trek?
No, I just seen Klaus Schwab like regular, like wearing a suit.
Yeah, he has this funky suit. It looks literally like he's a spaceman. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, what the hell are you thinking? And he's got that accent. He just sounds like a character right out of
the James Bond villain.
James Bond, or I was going to say Austin Powers. It's so comical.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, let's talk more about that. So, okay, let's close it up soon. But before we close it up, I'm going to ask you a question. Open up one more topic, okay?
Sure.
Are you ready? This
Yeah.
question. So last night I went to see friends of ours.
Okay.
And we have these really good discussions, like you and I always have. I find those discussions, and they're just so fascinating. If I couldn't hang out with people who had fascinating discussions, I mean, just life wouldn't be worth living. So, but this question popped into my brain. We were all in. We were having a hot tub, and the girls they were in there too long. We were in there 45 minutes, and the girls went in, and my buddy Dan and I were sitting there talking, and talking about life stuff and everything, and all kinds of interesting conversations. And somehow in my brain, this question popped into my brain, and I asked them this question, and I'm going to ask you this question. You ready?
Sure.
All right. In your darkest hours of your darkest days, what tools, ideas, thoughts, impulses, or forces stopped you from going down a dark or wrong path? And you could define path if you want. Is that not a cool question? I thought it was a good question.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So, because you could think about life and the journeys we go on, and some people have gone down dark paths, and I certainly could have and should have gone down some much, much darker roads. And I just know a lot of people who did, and their lives unraveled, and they just did not turn out well for, they were addicted to either drugs or booze or really bad behaviors, or they couldn't get their lives in order, and it was just chaos after chaos. And you're like, man, that's so chaotic. But I kind of feel like I pulled it together, although I was kind of 31 years old, a little bit later in life when I decided, not to. And I often wondered about that. I don't have a clear answer, by the way, for what it is that worked on my behalf.
I've got a two-part answer to that one.
Shoot.
I think with me, it was my conscience. My conscience or internal moral compass, or whatever you want to call it.
Your locus of control.
I was unable to tolerate myself doing what I was doing. Okay. And I did not feel good about myself.
That's interesting. I've heard that before.
Hated myself with my drinking. And also, the second part was, there are parts of my life prior to this dark period when I was a child and a teenager, which were really good. A lot of good times, a lot of good feelings.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to get back to that.
So you had that as a reference. That's a reference point.
Yeah. So I thought to myself, I'm going down the dark path. I really don't like it. I feel bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get back to where I came from.
That's interesting.
And where I came from, a lot, like I wanted to feel like 12 or 13 again. Because I remember a lot of times when I was 12 and 13, it was almost like a magical time for me. You're just getting into puberty, and life is, you start to learn all this stuff, and
you're getting
like really interesting, and
you're getting your first boner.
Yeah. So everything's fun and interesting and a big adventure. And I didn't know really the ways of the world, obviously.
No.
And I just remember it was a good time. And even in my teens, it was like a lot of really good times. And I thought, I want to get back to that. So that's my answer. Combination of my conscience and previous good times, or previous way of living. Now, I can see maybe some people who have such horrible childhoods or such bad lives that there's hardly anything that they can use as a reference. So they really have it tough.
But I've seen people with the worst of the worst childhood.
Yeah.
And they've just rose above it, and they've shown.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. Maybe some people have. I don't want to sound like what's the word, superior or anything, but I think some people just maybe are weaker or have a worse constitution than others.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not fair, or maybe some people have just been so hammered down so badly that you don't blame them for keep going the way they're going. Like, I don't want to be judgmental,
No. Well, we're not going to take it that way. So, but I know what you're saying, and it's a valid viewpoint, and I agree with it 100%.
Because I'm sure that I've made some decisions in my life that people looked at it and say, what the hell was he thinking? And they're probably thinking, are you an idiot? Or look, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Yeah. And at that time, I was in a difficult spot, and I was thinking a certain way. And a lot of times I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I just kept on doing it anyways. And it was a difficult spot. And my reaction is, please be patient with me and forgive me. Please, I'm not asking you to excuse me, but please don't punish me too hard.
Yeah.
And then the other way is when I see somebody doing the same thing I was doing, thinking, what an idiot. What's he doing? But then I have to tell myself, whoa, wait a minute. You are exactly like that. So why are you being judgmental?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. It was a good answer. I wish I had as much clarity on my own personal life, which I don't, but yeah, it's I don't know. I had something else I was going to add to that. Now I can't remember what it was, but I know we live in interesting times, and I think a part of what's really influencing a lot of what's going on in today's day and age is the fact that we live in we have so much going for us, and so much technology and affluence. It's really hard to take a stance of victim or blame, which I don't like. I look at those as destructive and negative, and like
there are bona fide victims. If Yeah, like let's say if there's a bunch of people invade your home and beat the crap out of you and tie you up and steal all your belongings, yeah,
Yep.
you're a victim. Like that's you're a justifiable victim. But if
Sure.
10 years later you're still lamenting that and talking about it and thinking about it all the time, well, then okay, let's get over it.
That's attitude, mindset, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, let's leave it at that.
Alrighty.
I'm going to pause and don't hang up on me.
Okay.
So we'll talk soon about more about movies, especially
All right.
THX. And there's another concept I want to talk about. I mentioned this to you before, where why some movies are timeless and some movies are not.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
movies that are like big hits, like blockbuster hits, like I put Avatar in there. And I thought we should talk about that at some point in time.
All right.